Hi, welcome to Help Nobody Told Me. Shannon Johnson with Berkshire Hathaway, and we have with me today one of our senior resource team members,
Jordan Kagan, and I own the Man of Silver. And I'm really happy to introduce to you all today Marty Jalove, who is the master of happiness. And he's just such an amazing, positive energy person that I've been honored to hear speak a couple of times. So I want everyone to get to know him a little bit better.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Yes,
You're
yes.
welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. Let's get started.
Let's get going.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you get in? Was there like a magical moment or something that occurred in your life? Because this is not your first career.
No. I tell people that if you lead a rich life, you're going to have at least 5 careers. You're going to do many different things throughout life. What really forced or created this master happiness idea was being a single father raising 2 children and divorced father, is that my daughter was in high school age and she went through a lot of troubled times that as a father I was unaware of. I've never raised a daughter before. It was my first child. And I didn't understand it until one day she came to me in tears saying that, her life was falling apart and she was on her way of contemplating suicide. Scared me to death, not knowing what I was supposed to do. And so she's okay now. I want to first let everyone know that she's fine. She's a 5th grade teacher. She's just doing a wonderful job. But what it did was it made me realize how important it is to learn to become better listeners as opposed to just saying, I'm a listener. Okay.
So you're basically saying the name of our podcast, Help Nobody Told Me.
That is it.
Is the story
100%.
of your life.
Exactly.
Of how you interacted as a single father.
Yep.
And with your daughter that cried out for help.
Yes.
You had no idea where to begin to turn.
Correct.
And you took the oi that you were dealt, turned into joy.
That's it.
For you and your family
That was
and
it.
everyone else.
That was it.
That's now able to hear.
And I'll tell you, the pivotal moment for me was at the last doctor's visit when she was being released and she's talking to me. And I said to her, why didn't you just say something to me? Why didn't you reach out? And she said, Dad, you weren't listening. Wow. And you talk about just a crushing spirit. So I really bent over backwards with this, and I created a sheet called the with a happiness worksheet with the help of my daughter, and I offer it on my website. Anyone can just download it. I give it to anyone and everybody, and it's just a practice of comparing the joy that we reach every day, the things that bring us happiness every day, compared to the things that anger us, sadden us, and make us fearful. And it's a great little worksheet that. Hopefully I'll give you a link to that. But with that, it was this whole idea of master happiness was kind of born, where I wanted to reach out and help small business people, teams, individuals, etc., just find their core happiness, because people are just too sad. That's the problem.
And I want to clarify for the listeners out there, you'll be getting a link at the end of this, how to reach out to Marty. But it's not master of happiness.
Correct.
He's not the master.
Yes.
He wants all
Yes.
of us to master happiness.
Exactly. I always tell people, it's okay to be good at happiness. It's okay to be great at happiness. But I want us all to master happiness. I'm on that journey too. I have not mastered it. I still have bad days, and I want to turn each one of those around. Okay?
It's incredible. And, when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about, I have a specific friend in mind who everyone I introduce her to, after she walks away, they go, she exudes joy. Like you can't be near her and be in a foul mood. She just draws you in. Like, what is it about her that does that? How does she do that?
Yeah. And one of the things I'm going to tell you, because I love finding those people, and I have some friends like that, and I think it's this untamed optimism. Okay. In other words, I created something I thought about. I call it the aha moment. We all have that eureka moment, aha. But it stands for, AHA stands for anticipate happiness always. No matter what situation I'm in, if I'm in a car accident, if something happens, somebody calls me and says, hey, blah, blah, blah was rushed to the hospital. I'm going to anticipate happiness always, because there's always a silver lining. I can say, they're in the hospital. Good. They're in the right care. They're still alive. Okay, somebody cut me off in traffic. Oh my goodness, they're in a rush. I was able to help them get to where they're going. Okay.
That's a much better perspective than I have on that, Marty.
But that's the whole idea. Is I don't care where I'm in. And this is still an exercise. I fail at this sometimes, but I push myself into anticipating happiness always. So I'm a terrible person to invite to a funeral. Okay, for the same reason.
Or maybe not.
There you go.
But maybe you're the one that's supposed to officiate the funeral.
Exactly. Right.
So you do a lot of work with businesses, and,
Yes.
and you mentioned that. What looks like happiness and positive energy in the workplace? What does that look like?
Well, the first thing I ask them is straight out is find out what I ask the question, what's your bacon? Okay? In other words, what is it that you look forward to tomorrow? What is it that you could promise yourself tomorrow morning that is so exciting, I almost lose sleep the night before, right? And if you can come up with that thing, and for me it was bacon, okay, but for somebody else it
And
might...
there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no, it's only good things, right? But for other people it might be playing with my dog. Another person it might be, I want to go sailing. I just want to go out for a walk. So I tell people immediately, find that thing, that core thing that you are giddy about. Okay, it could be a round of golf, whatever it is. And see if you can connect your career to it, or at least your Monday to it. Because if I can promise myself a plate of bacon Monday morning, Sunday night I'm looking forward to Monday, right? And this is the problem, is too often at the workplace, we are striving for the weekend as opposed to looking forward to our job. Wednesday is hump day and we're like, oh, I'm halfway through. Thursday, Friday, and I want the weekend. I want to turn this around so Sunday night I'm going, I get to go to work tomorrow. That's how I work with businesses, and I get them to discover their inner bacon.
Love that. So, as you have worked with businesses,
Yes.
what are some of the common traits that you see in leaders that really successfully put that positive energy into the workplace? Like,
Okay.
how do they do
I
that?
think it's the number one answer is honest communication. Leaders that really listen empathetically and understand that these people who work for them are people. Okay, it used to be, we probably grew up, you're much younger than us, but we probably grew up in an area where, you're welcome, that we got that one review once a year, and a year later the boss goes, yeah, you haven't been performing well. Well, you let me act this way for a year, right? What do employees do? They spend time around the water cooler knocking their bosses, knocking the job, saying this is so awful, right? So instead, if an employer, a manager, a leader within a business can reach out and communicate with their people on a regular basis, I push the businesses I coach, I tell them, talk to your employees every single week. Once a week, have a one-on-one with them. If you can't do it, you've got leadership teams that have to do this, because you've got to find out the big picture, how they're feeling, okay, the action steps that they're going to take based on how they're feeling, the conflicts they're having, okay, the other stuff that goes on, and then finally a notable win. And if you paid attention, that spells bacon, B-A-C-O-N, okay?
So let's take these good bosses,
Yes.
these good leaders.
Yeah.
How can they, more than just a regular check-in with a single
Right.
employee, what can they do to cultivate and maintain positive energy in their business, their team, and maybe even, because, not every profession or team, some of them, they are working in a pressure cooker, so it's even more challenging. So what are some of these things that, they can do?
Right, so I'm going to tell you this, is that first off, you really have to establish the culture of the business. A lot of cultures are this hierarchy culture where they're saying, I'm at the top, I create the rules, you just shut up and listen to me. But they pretend they want a clan culture. They want to be warm and huggy, but they can't do it because they're not being true to themselves. So the number one thing is create the culture. And if you can't live up to your own culture, then get out of the way. Find leaders who can step in there and fulfill that dream of yours. Find leaders that will talk to your employees on a regular basis so that the best of those employees can come out. Because what you don't want is, you don't want to promise your people a warm and fuzzy workplace, but yet the entire time, day after day, you're telling them, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. So if you can't do that as a leader, if you can't do that, sure, steer the ship, but then get other people that can show the empathy to your team. Okay, I always say in order to get, and you're going to love this because I have acronyms for everything. In order to get good employees, in order to get them to stay, in order to get them to get it, it's GET. It used to be goals and tools, but the most importantly is the E is empathy. You have to be able to give your team the goals, what you want them to accomplish, empathy to understand that sometimes they're going to make mistakes, which is good because that's how we grow, and then finally give them all the tools, whether it's the training, the staples, the paper clips, whatever it is, all the tools they need to succeed.
Well, and you made a good point there because you talked about if that leader isn't the person that can show the empathy. When I think about offices, there's always somebody in the office that has their finger on the pulse of everybody in the building.
Yep.
They know what's going on in their life. They know if they've got like something crushing going on at home or there's been a celebration that they've had recently. They know what's getting them down
and we
at
love
work.
that person. Right,
so,
right. Yeah.
So you have to align yourself as a leader, what you're saying, with that person.
Correct.
So that you get an open door to that information.
Yes.
So that you can react to it.
Completely. Because there's nothing worse than that fake empathy where you come up and you go like, oh, so Joe, how's that child of yours? You know, and you're like, going, wow, I don't have a child, I have a dog. You're thinking of someone else, right? You don't want that. You want genuine concern, genuine feelings towards your employees. And I said, sometimes people who run the business might be great visionaries, but they're not people, okay? They don't know how to interact with people, and that's okay. Let them run the business. Let them be the brains behind the money, okay? But then find good leaders who can get their employees to love coming to the office. That's what's so important.
Let's talk about empathy.
Okay?
And a good leader.
Yes. Let's talk about it.
Crossing the line between them being a leader and a boss.
Yes.
And being a friend of employees. Can a boss be a friend?
No. I believe that I draw a hard, fast line. It's important to be friendly, but not friends. Because if you try to create too strong of a relationship and we become friends, how can I discipline you? How can I get to the point where I have to say, I have to let you go? Okay? So it's important to be friendly, but draw the line to say that we are not friends. We are employer-employee. Okay? And there's a strong difference between managers and leaders. I want to influence people by my actions and lead them. I want them to say, wow, I want Marty to be happy with me. I want him to be proud of me. I want to do something extra so he notices me, as opposed to a manager who's going to set up a group of guidelines and say, just do this stuff. Okay? So I want to move in that direction. You can see everything for me is motivating people, finding what makes them click, and driving that home and using that talent. Right.
So what about when the leader is in a situation where maybe the pressure's tough, the business isn't going well, they're not happy right now?
Right.
What do you recommend for them? How do they create a happy environment
if the leader's
not happy? Because it all starts at the head and goes down, right?
Right. And so when we look at this leadership, you have to ask yourself, first off, are we talking about the owner of the company, the guy who's making the decisions, or are we talking a middle manager? Because if it's a middle manager and he's going, I'm not happy and I'm having a difficult time inspiring my people, he's got to have open communication with the owner at the next level up. But if it's the top level, okay, that person's got to walk away, maybe talk to a business coach like Master Happiness, okay, but talk to a business coach or something and just say, am I going to fail at this? Is it time for me to step away? Is it time for me to just say, look, you guys run it on your own. I don't have the bandwidth, the strength to be joyous every day, okay? But that person who's running the ship like that can't show that kind of weakness that often to his team, because then they're going to see that weakness and they're going to then mimic that and say, well, then I can have a bad day and then I don't have to necessarily finish this. Okay, so if it's middle management, go upstairs and talk to them and saying, I'm having a rough day, help me out. I need a sounding room. Okay, I always let people vent. I never let people whine. Okay, and if I own the company and if I'm having a bad day, then I can stay away from my employees. Okay, they've been given instructions.
And the leader, as I hear you saying, if the leader's having a rough day, he feels like he's in the pressure cooker. And he doesn't want to take it out on his team. Then he needs to go up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or call Marty because he's
there. You go. And I'm going to give you something.
But
to smile
the other thing that you said,
Yes.
and I don't think people look at it this way, is not having the happiness, being angry, being
Right.
whatever that looks like if you're not happy,
Yeah.
is a weakness.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think people look at leaders like that.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna build on that. It's a weakness if you allow it to take control. We're humans. I don't care who you are. I'm going to get angry sometimes. I'm going to get sad sometimes. I am going to be scared sometimes. But it's how I respond to that that's more important. If I'm angry, as a father, and I always say being a father made me a better leader in business. Being a good leader in business made me a better father. If I respond with anger to my kids or my employees, they look upon that and they will look upon it as a weakness. Like, oh, then don't do that. Don't cross him. I'm not going to try something new because he's going to get upset. So I could go, wow, that was a bad mistake. I'm going to come back to you and go, rather than me getting angry, okay, I'm going to ask you, what did we learn from that? Okay, I'm going to try to turn every one of those negatives into a positive. If I'm so angry that I can't have the conversation with you, I'm going to say, you know what? I just don't like the way this went. Let's take some time. Let me contemplate this. I want you to think about it, and let's meet tomorrow. All right, I am not going to allow my emotions to run the meeting. So if I'm scared, if I'm sad, if I'm angry, I'm not going to have that meeting. I'm going to postpone that meeting till I have control of my emotions.
And
Okay.
I think all these things you talk about in business today,
Yes.
I think 90% of what you've discussed today goes into our personal lives.
Oh,
our family
certainly,
life, and
right?
our home.
Think of that, how easy it is for us to snap against the people we care about. And that's
And especially when times are stressful, you're dealing with an aging parent,
Oh,
someone
yeah.
that's not well physically or mentally. It's tough. It's
Yeah.
really tough.
And I think we have that knee-jerk reaction so much quicker with the people we're closest to, because something inside us says, I'm not going to lose this person. I can be a little bit worse to them. I can be a little bit mean to them. I'm not going to lose them. But in business, I can't do that, because I do that enough, and that great employee is going to go, I don't need this. I'm leaving. Okay.
Right. We're not in
So,
a culture anymore where people stay at the same job for
How about it?
40 years.
I think the average is now like 2.83 years, less than 3 years.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
We're talking about being a leader,
Yes.
making people want to get out of bed,
Yes.
want to go to work.
Uh-huh.
By any chance, you have the statistics, what it costs to bring on
Oh.
board and train
Well-
the average employee versus the
Yeah.
mentality, let me spend a few extra dollars to make someone happy.
Right.
Because I don't want to start all over again.
To come up with the exact statistics, no, I don't have those on me, not handy. We can definitely dig those up. But I'll tell you the one thing is that we both know that if the average is less than 3 years, we are constantly going to be changing people. I think I read something that it's going to take you at least 6 months of training by the time they're going to actually learn their job. So if I'm going to spend 6 months and they're going to stay with me only 2.5 years, after that, I'm spending so much time. That's on the training, let alone the hiring process, the interviewing,
Maybe a headhunter.
Exactly.
Or an
So there's all this
executive
cost. So here's what I do with people. Brand new hire. Let's say I'm hiring you. You come in. I'm going to say I'm going to make you 2 promises, and I want you to make 1 promise back to me. And that is, I'm going to create an open door policy, a true open door policy with a lot of open communication, so that on any day, if you have a question, you can come to me and we can talk, right? Because I want us to grow together. I'm going to create a scenario here that's going to be so wonderful that if you decide to leave, it is going to be one of the most difficult decisions you've ever got to make, because it's going to be such a great company to work for. Secondly, I'm going to give you an experience here. So if you do leave, you're going to look back and go, those were some of the best years of my life. I learned so much. Those are the 2 things I'm going to give you. Make it a tough decision and give you something worth remembering. All I ask in return is you deserve it. Okay? And that's what it comes down to. And I tell people, new hires, on average, we're going to be together for 3 years. That's the average. Let's do something incredible in 3 years. Let's do a handshake contract, a handshake deal that in 3 years you and I are going to communicate and do something amazing. Because in 3 years, if you leave, my company is better because you did something amazing here. In 3 years, if you leave, you have something incredible to put on your resume. So let's in 3 years do something amazing together. Okay? In 2 years or so, I'm going to look at this. You're going to know, I love working. I'm going to do another 3 years. And that's how we keep people motivated and excited. And if I make that deal with you, I have to follow up with you on a regular basis. Okay? I can't say, let's do this, and then ignore you for 3 years.
And what you did was you just took that negative and turned it into a positive.
Exactly.
Instead of, I'm going to lose them in 3 years.
Right.
We're going to do something great in 3 years.
Exactly. Then who doesn't want to work there, right?
Right?
Yeah.
I'm coming. When do I start? Like, I'm coming to work.
There you go.
She's going to start paying you.
That's right. I like it.
So, can you think of a specific example of maybe a business or an organization
Yes.
that started here and you helped them master happiness?
Yes.
To see a significant change in their organization.
Yes, I can think of some, but you know what I try to do is I try to protect the businesses I work for.
Well, you don't have to tell me it was Kraft. But
Right. No.
Just kidding. No association.
Right. It's this idea of, I think it's the greatest thing is teaching them to develop a culture and understand truly what a culture is. And then secondly is listing your values. All right, what the values of the owners of the company, what they stand for. And the value list is not what you want the customers to hear. It's what you truly stand for. And if you come up with a culture idea, how we're going to formulate ideas, how we're going to work on a daily basis, and I give you a list of these values that we stand behind, okay? And then I come up with a vision statement of where I want to go. These are not just fluff pieces that the advertising department needs. These are things that should be put on the wall, right? So that everybody lives up to them. And so this way, when you make a mistake, and I come to you and I go, why did you do that? And you could say, because one of our values said, help our customers first. And what I did was made my best decision. And I thought helping the customer first in this scenario was better than anything else. Then I'm going to go, I appreciate the way you were thinking because you were thinking about our value list, but that's not exactly how I want you to do this. Now I have a way of correcting you without scolding you, okay? And we're keeping ourselves all on the same path, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, are there any resources or books, or other than obviously
Yes,
your
my book. Yes.
that you recommend for leaders?
Well, so on my website, I have the Master Happiness Book Club is part of my website, and there's links to it all the time.
Oh, that's cool.
I am one of these avid readers. I read as many different books as possible on every single subject line because I want to learn it, and I understand. You'll read a whole book and you'll gather like one or two key points, and then what I do is I immediately put them into action. Okay, if you were to talk about leadership in general. John Maxwell, anything by John Maxwell is going to be just golden. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a guy who is formulated an incredible team around him, has taken some of the greatest knowledge and been able to funnel it down into really easy to digest pieces. Okay, so if you were going to talk about leadership in general, just look for anything. If you can't find anything by Master Happiness, find something by John Maxwell. Okay.
What else have we not talked about? Because what have we missed in your whole theory of your company?
Okay, well, thank you. So I do a variety of things. I truly believe that in order to lead a happy life, you've got to do the things that bring you joy. I have customers that I've dealt with that don't align with my values, and I don't care how much money they're willing to pay me. I have to tell them I don't want to work with you because I can't deliver my best. So that's one of the lessons I like to teach people. Some of the other things I do is I meet up with a mentor every week, a friend of mine who is 20 years my senior. Okay, believe it, he's still alive, right? And so I love that because I get to see the things that I can become. And I ask him questions about the life that he's led, of the life that's in my future. I also spend a lot of time with younger people. I teach public speaking and debate skills to kids as young as 7 years old through high school.
Wow.
Because these kids are sponges. They love getting this information. They want to learn everything. And I laugh so hard with kids because as adults we forget to laugh. Okay, so I span that going back and forth. And what I learn from the kids, I bounce off my mentor. What I learn from my mentor, I bounce off my kids. And together, all of this information I bring to the businesses that I coach. And I tell them, you know what? Why are you in business if you're not going to have fun? Okay, that's what it comes down to. So I do a lot of stuff. I do keynote speaking. I do, just a variety of things. Anything that's going to put a smile on my face,
love it.
I'm going to do it. Okay?
And you can't see if you're listening, but he is just smiling since he walked in the door.
And I didn't know we were on
today.
camera. I'm only wearing a sweatshirt. Usually I'm wearing Hawaiian shirts with my logo all over them and stuff like that.
Yes.
So, yes.
One story that just was that wow factor that you remember.
Wow.
That just resulted in such positive energy.
I guess it was kind of, wow, that's a great one. I love these curveballs. So I'm going to say it was probably the day that I published my first children's book, which is called Bacon's Bacon Bacon. It's about a pig named Bacon who bakes bacon in the oven. Right, so it's a great,
so
it's a tongue. Yes, it is, right, but it's a tongue twister kind of book, and I published it when my daughter was very young. Okay, she was kind of been 4 or 5 years old, and she said, "Daddy, you're such a great artist. You're such a great storyteller. You should do a children's book," because we would read books together and stuff. And so I thought about it, and I worked on it, created the character, drew the book, wrote it, and it got it published 19 years later. Okay, 19 years later, and it was dedicated to my daughter and my wife, but I gave it to her. She got the very first copy, and she laughed, and she goes, "Dad, I'm 23. What am I going to do with this children's book?" And I said, "I just want to tell you, you inspired me, and that pig, that little Bacon, the pig, this cute little pig, reminds me that it's never too late to start. Okay, and it's never too early to finish it. You know, you can just, if you've got an idea, just jump in and do it." So that type of thing, just that, the idea of publishing my first book like that and seeing my daughter and her laughing about it, going, "You're giving me a children's book and I'm 23 years old," inspired me. My goal in life now is to publish a book every year for as long as I can, because I've got the ability to do so. And so I think it's important for us all to have these yearly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals, etc., because that's what life is about. Why am I going to, I want to look back at 2024 and say I did something. Okay, I want to look back at 2025. That was the year I did this, as opposed to, I don't know, the years just blend together.
Wow. There's a lot in that. And if you want to master happiness, you can go to masterhappiness.com.
Right.
And you can get a little bit more of Jalove with Marty.
There you go.
So his book, The Legends of Sales, Master the 3 Secrets of Sizzling Sales Success, is available to you, I'm sure, in
On
all
Amazon.
places.
Yes,
in
yeah.
Amazon.
Right.
And we want to thank you for joining us today. We'll have all of his
We've made you
information.
smile.
There you go.
Absolutely. And laugh and continue to master happiness.
There you go.
So thank you. Join us next week for another episode of Help
Help
Nobody Told Me.